Thank you very much. So, as you was very kindly introduced, my name is Akbar Datu. I am a technologist who turned later on into a lawyer and the founder and CEO of D2 Legal Technology, as well as a appointed member of the Law Society's Technology and Law Committee. And it really is a pleasure to talk to all of you today about a theme that's very close to my heart in terms of legal technology and what it can do, what it can achieve, and the really interesting questions and opportunities it provides. And maybe just as part of that, I can provide some background as to the journey that it brought for me and the opportunity kind of I saw in that. Um, I started off life at an investment bank, UBS, on the trading floor, modeling complex derivatives. So a financial product that a lot of banks and institutions enter into, and was essentially being asked to price and model these complex products. And unlike many other things that we might buy or trade or deal in, it's not possible to see something tangible in front of you. Like, for example, a car dealer would when selling cars, buying and selling cars. And this thought took me to finding the most tangible representation of these financial instruments, which really was a series of contractual obligations, a legal contract. And you very quickly realize that in order to best be able to work in this business of finance and optimize your trading decisions, you really need to understand those contracts. You really need to understand exactly what they say. However, I was faced with a legal department that really didn't appreciate what technology could do for it. I suppose as lawyers, we are somewhat conservative, which is a good thing. You know, conservatism very much is at the heart of the law and also provides that ability to understand, provide that certainty. But in a world faced with technology inspiring and making our lives easier in every aspect of it, it is very odd that you come across a legal department or your legal function or lawyers who proverbially would still reach out for the parchment paper and pen. There is a massive advantage that we see day to day in our lives through digitization, be that through analytics, be that through machines helping us make decisions faster, more accurately than we could ever imagine to do. But coming back to that legal department that I saw around me, we struggled even to find documents because there was very little concept of filing or storing those documents. There was very little concept of being able to store the terms of what those contracts were and make decisions based on that. And I mean, it's hard to believe that it's about 20 years ago since Richard Susskind wrote his provocatively titled book at the time, The End of Lawyers, arguing that technology would come and change the very nature of what could be done, and the reliance on this legal profession would be greatly reduced. I'm pleased to say that the tone of the most recent books has changed somewhat into titles such as The Transformation of the Law, realizing that this is an opportunity to empower the legal function and the value we can add to society and businesses all around us. And also led to my personal journey in terms of moving from being a technologist, an IT developer, to a lawyer at the Magic Circle law firm, and then at D2LT, advising institutions on how they can digitize their agreements and embrace this mix between legal and technology. And I have a couple of slides that I will share as part of this. Hopefully you can see my screen in front of you now. Maybe if someone could just confirm if that's the case. So what you see there is the lawyer drowning in paper. Now, it really is important to realize that legal tech is not a threat, it's an opportunity. On this next slide, I found a very amusing material. It was an advert for what's described as a career fair for legal futurists and a rather provocative title of Law Jobs for Humans. But what is legal tech? And what will it do? What can it do? Well, the Law Tech Delivery Panel set up by the UK government and others talks about technologies which aim to support, supplement, or replace traditional methods for delivering legal services, of transactions, or which improve the operation of the justice system. All too often, as lawyers, we have simply shut the door to innovation and technology. And a cartoon that I saw very early on in my career there at the bottom, you have a number of people in a bygone era carrying a very heavy slab of stone. And you have someone turn up to them. I mean, they're holding this slab on their shoulders and really struggling with the weight of this slab, this stone slab. And someone's turned up with a wheel and said, "Have you thought about the following?" And the people holding the stone turn around in annoyance and say, "Can you not see how busy we are? Rather than seeking to help us, you just come up with this thing." And this is the danger that we find ourselves in with the development of technology and advances such as AI, big data. We have the tools, we now have the technology. The question is, will we realize that those things are there to help us and offer a path forwards into the future? It very much changes the role of a lawyer. What we have to understand is access to information is so much easier in today's world. And this idea that the lawyer is one who has access to this information and know-how that others don't do is a very dangerous way to think about things, particularly if we want to make sure that as a profession, we stay on top of what we do and continue to provide that pivotal role to society. In order to truly unlock value in terms of what we do, legal tech also is not just about e-billing systems, case management systems, things that enable us to do our specific work better. But it's also about allowing us to unlock more value as well. It's not about just doing the things that we do today faster, but it's about changing the way in which we do that. Because the technology, as we see in everyday lives that we have today, allows us to just solve the underlying problem that just happens to have a legal component to it in a completely different way that allows untold advantages in terms of what it does. On the next slide here, I've gone through some of the different technologies that we may refer to, the ones that really excite me in terms of what we can do. And we start off with a very basic definition of something like an algorithm. So a series of instructions for performing a calculation or solving a problem. And here on the slide, it says, especially with a computer. But I'd like you to think through what you do as a lawyer. Quite often, there are checklists. There are rules given as to how to analyze a problem and how to give advice. Therefore, is it really that unimaginable that we can have an algorithm that would help to do this alongside us? And surely it doesn't need me to tell you that the speed and accuracy with which a series of pre-detailed steps can be followed, well, quite frankly, a human will be no match for that. But a bit of a cautionary note again for those that think that this is all about technology with no legal input. And I was fortunate to listen to a talk by Kasparov, reminiscing about his defeat to Deep Blue in the Grandmaster chess battles of a bygone time. And he talks about the fact that the real excitement is not whether Deep Blue will beat Kasparov or not. The real excitement and the real value you can see, both human and machine in that case achieve a certain level, but it's a different order of magnitude of level with both of them working together. And the law really is cut out for that, that situation, machine guided by that expert SME lawyer. I have there blockchain, cryptocurrency, distributed ledgers, matters that you will come across now increasingly in your day-to-day reading. Expert systems, machine learning, neural networks, and at the bottom there, smart contracts. And I've picked up a particular definition there by one of the ones that I like, by Clack, Bakshi, and Brain. An automatable and enforceable agreement. Automatable by computer, although some parts may require human input and control. Enforceable either by legal enforcement of rights and obligations or via tamper-proof execution of computer code. And again, a bit of a note, there are often neither smart nor a contract. But this, again, offers tremendous opportunity. This idea that we enter into a contract and things just happen. The performance is automated, linked in with all of the applications and systems that we have. And I've already touched on what legal tech is not. It needs us to take a hard look at what we do as lawyers. It is not a fix for struggling business models as law firms or lawyers or barristers, or for outdated processes. Too often we think that we fall into one of two extremes. We think that legal tech is about taking over humans, or we think about legal tech is just something that will happen overnight, will happen without us changing how we embrace it. That is certainly not going to be the case. The key part is to make sure that one changes how we do things that better integrates to what technology does best. So legal tech will not render lawyers obsolete, and smart contracts are not here today, but we have the opportunity to make them come tomorrow. And I'd like to remind you of a very famous quote from Bill Gates, that we overestimate the impact technology will have in the short term, but we underestimate the impact it will have in the medium term. So a 2-3 year horizon is really what we ought to be focusing on, and understand that that's where we can make a difference. And to urge you not to ignore the AI or leave the AI to itself, because a fool with a tool is very much still a fool. I'll skip over the slide I had on what is AI, and almost just pose some questions around what does good AI look like, and things to think about are control, innovation, and regulation working hand in hand, understanding the risks and benefit between the use of AI versus a human going through things, ethical filters, building in human judgment and controls in order to make sure that we don't allow the AI to take us into areas that the law fights so hard in order to protect, such as equality and rights of people. And Sahil later will be talking about some of them. An off switch, something very simple, compliance by design. We want to avoid algorithmic bias, lack of transparency, corruption, and collusion that these things can provide if we're not too careful. And many of you may have come across, or you may wish to have a look at, some of the issues that have arisen, for example, with self-pricing algorithms, taking you very much into the thrust of competition law issues. Technology and legal tech, AI, smart contracts, blockchain, offers an opportunity for us to apply the law, both in terms of how we perform legal services and the value we add. And it straddles into so many different areas of law. We have here an example that takes up a lot of my time these days, being involved primarily within the financial industry and the law pertaining to it. And some of you may know that there is the decommissioning of LIBOR, the London Interbank Offered Rate, due in 2021, for something that banks just have very little prospect of doing, of finding the relevant clauses within their agreements if they were to do this manually. Cases like this and Brexit, where we've had to search through many, many documents and understanding the impact of phasing off of laws and regulations that we have spent a very long time being used to in the UK. These offer opportunities for things such as legal technology. So I really would urge you to understand and harness the opportunities that legal tech offers. I have here some of the exciting areas that we have seen, from agreement and legal opinion digitization, contract analysis, this virtual office that we see in a post-COVID world really coming to the fore, and lawyers embracing remote working technologies, cloud services, virtual negotiators, hyper awareness, understanding events that occur and linking those to our contracts and to our law, smart contracts and smart legal opinions, if I may offer that term, pattern analytics. E-discovery tools perhaps is one of those areas where there is already a lot of work in place. And how much can we extend that out into other areas of the law? Connected data, secure interactions, and connected services. I often like to talk about one of my personal experiences with the use of AI, and was involved with the build out of a very large system that sought to take for a particular investment bank in the region of 100,000 documents, digitize them, and extract out the legal data relevant. Now, these clauses or these contracts contain clauses called a termination currency, which contains a lot of important detail for these banks. And you can see there at the bottom some of the example clauses that occur. Termination currency means United States dollars. Termination currency means euros. And the technology did phenomenally well in terms of extracting all of those bits of data. But I'd like you to look at that paragraph at the end, and I'll read it out for you as well. Termination currency means such currency of any transaction as may be selected by the party which is not the defaulting party or the affected party, as the case may be. Or if there is more than one affected party, such currency of any transaction as may be mutually agreed between the parties hereto, or otherwise. Failing such mutual agreement, or in the event that such currency is not freely available, and all other cases, United States dollars. Now, this is an illustration, if you ever needed it, that technology is not here to replace us. And the best way forwards is to supplement it alongside the expertise of lawyers. Because when this clause hit the system, unfortunately, the system saw the three letters, all, ALL, put in bold for you here. Now, the system knew trivia, knew some general knowledge facts like none of us did, including the fact that ALL is the currency code for Albanian lek. And unfortunately, it got the context wrong. It extracted a termination currency of Albanian lek. And no human would make that mistake. But the benefits that the system brought in terms of automating 99% of the agreements in front of us to then just make sure that human verification and checks and controls were in place meant that this project was still very much the way forwards. But that tells us about the challenges that we need to be mindful of, understanding the data, the inputs and outputs of these systems, identifying innovation champions, the skills we need. And that's a very, very important point. We need to make sure that we are skilled in order to support the promise of these technologies. From an understanding of the technology, data governance, understanding how legal data is used downstream, how to put those checks and balances in place. And something that I'm afraid to say in-house lawyers and lawyers more broadly don't do particularly well, understanding the business processes in which the advice they give is actually used. And I'd like to end on this slide here, just to say that this very much is an opportunity for us. The potential vendors and tool sets and universe is absolutely endless, as are the possibility. We really have this opportunity to empower the legal industry to unlock business value through legal change. Thank you.
Thank you, Akbar sir. Your session was very informative. We have a lot of compliments and some questions as well, which we will be discussing in the Q&A session later. So now I think it's Sahil sir's session. Uh, can I know whose session, because we have changed the schedule. Shraddha, please let me know whose session is it.
Hello, everyone. Actually, I just had a talk with Mr. Sahil. He just said that if it is okay that Mr. Steven could take this session, so it'll be in line. It'll be in a schedule. Hello, Mr. Steven. Steven, sir.
Let me unmute, sir. Sir, can you take over the session?
It's fine with me.
Okay, thank you,
okay,
sir.
sir. Okay. Thank you so much, sir.
So can anyone confirm if you can see me and also see the screen that I'm just sharing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this webinar. Today, I'm going to talk about bridging the gap from legal documents to legal data. But before that, I would like to briefly introduce myself. I am Stevan Gostojic, and I work as an associate professor of applied computer science and informatics at University of Novi Sad in Serbia, where I teach a legal tech course, among other courses. I also work as an IT consultant for UNDP Serbia on several projects, and one of those projects is related to legal tech. And last but not the least, I'm one of the co-authors of the legal tech book. And I would just like to use the opportunity to say a few words about this book. This is the first crowdsourced book on legal technologies and legal innovation. And it brought together legal tech experts who are sharing their vision and insights into the nature of legal technologies. What is interesting is that the book was published just a few weeks ago on June 4th. And if you're interested, you can find it on Amazon. So I wanted to give some brief introduction into legal tech, but as the previous speaker gave much better introduction, I'm just going to skip this slide and come to the point into legal document engineering, or let's say automation of business processes in law firms and legal departments. What every one of us already knows is that documents play a crucial role in operations of law firms and legal departments. They're either inputs and outputs of business processes, or are used as a knowledge base when lawyers do their work. However, since the introduction of machine learning in the previous decades, current trends in legal tech mainly focus on data and not on documents. So what I want to introduce you to are some recent trends in legal document engineering that can be a solution to bridge the gap between legal documents and legal data. To be more specific, I'm going to speak about three trends: standardization of machine-readable legal documents, standardization of legal metadata ontologies, and standardization of legal citation mechanisms. And this talk is going to be a little bit more technical than the previous one. So as far as the legal document formats are concerned, the main advantage of using those specific formats instead of using generic document formats such as Microsoft Word document, PDF, or HTML is that they can explicitly specify document syntax and semantics and enable better interoperability between different information systems. During the previous decade, or let's say previous 2 decades, there were several generations of legal document standards. The first generation was based either on relational data model or on typographical convention. The second generation introduced web standards such as XML, and the third and the last generation also introduced using ontologies to represent document metadata. So the legal informatics community specialized web standards such as XML and RDF into the legal domain. And let's say the currently most promising legal document format is legal document markup language that is standardized by OASIS International Business Informatics Standardization Body. So if you're looking for a format that you can use to represent legal documents in a technical manner, I would recommend using this format. The second trend is using legal metadata ontologies. What is important to mention is that the Web of Data has reached the same order of magnitude as Web of Documents. So there is a lot of hype about Web 3.0 in the last several years. Maybe the best known example is DBpedia, which makes information available in Wikipedia in a machine-readable format. What happened during the last decade is that web standardization organizations standardized and promoted a set of standards for Web of Data. Those are standards for representing knowledge graphs, RDF, standard for representing knowledge graph schemata such as RDFS and OWL, and a standard for querying knowledge graph, which is called Sparkle. Those of you who are, let's say, who know something about artificial intelligence probably had the opportunity to hear about ontologies. But for the purpose of this webinar, I'm going to be a little bit more informal and going to define ontology as a scheme of knowledge graphs, which we can use to represent metadata. And over the years, there were numerous legal ontologies that have been developed. Some of those ontologies are more general, and they're used to represent general legal knowledge. And other ontologies are more specific, and they're used to represent document metadata. Among those second type of ontologies, I would like to stress Segmental X ontology and also Akomena-Toso ontology. And what is also worth to mention is that in the cases when ontologies are not expressive enough, also rules can be used. There is one standard for representing rules on the internet, which is called Rule Markup Language or Rule ML. And this standard was specialized into the legal domain in a standard that is called Legal Rule ML. And the third trend that I wanted to mention is the standardization of legal citation mechanisms. So machine-readable legal citation schemes enable several things. First of all, they enable us to cite sources of law on the internet, but they also enable us to automatically, let's say, retrieve those documents that we cited, of course, if they're available publicly and online. There are also several citation standards, and they're usually specializations of internet standards such as URL or URN. And I'm going to stress several of them. which are mainly used in Europe. European legislation identifier enables identification and citation of legislative documents throughout Europe. European case law identifier enables citation of case law or judicial documents. And there's also more general URN Lex standard that enables citation of both of those types of documents and some other documents, and it is not specific to Europe. I also wanted to mention some recent developments into the NLP or natural language processing world. What is interesting to notice is that NLP techniques can be used in the legal domain, and they can bridge the gap between legal documents and legal data by extracting data from textual documents. There are several techniques that can be used, but I'm going to mention only 3 of those, let's say, use cases. The most simple thing to do is to do some named entity recognition techniques to extract data for documents. Data such as names, organizations, places, dates, etc. can be in a simple manner extracted from those documents. Documents can also be automatically classified into one of several categories, and text can be summarized. Those techniques are not perfect. They don't work 100% of the time, but can save much human labor. And for the end, I just wanted to give several examples of products and services which are based on those technologies. And I'm going to give 3 examples. One is from the for-profit world, another from not-for-profit world, and the third one is from the public sector. So LegisPro is a web-based legislation editor which enables editing legislation and regulation is in a user-friendly way, and as an output gives documents that are according to the standards that I just briefly introduced you to. There is also a Legal Information Institute at the Cornell University that is a pioneer in the free access to law movement, and I think it is the largest free publisher of legal information in the US, and it also leverages on those technologies to enable its users to access that law in a more user-friendly way. And last but not the least, legislation.gov.uk also uses those techniques to help people draft, amend, and publish law in the UK. So to conclude, the legal academics community has decades of experience in using information technology and artificial intelligence to tackle problems in the legal domain. And those technologies and methods have matured during the last decade. So reusing that experience can help legal tech companies and startups in developing, deploying, and offering their products and services to the world. So thank you very much, and I'm open for questions, if any.